It's my absolute pleasure, one, to welcome you all to our final Lean Shingo Forum for this year. Again, and I'm super delighted to welcome Gwendolyn Galsworth. Again, this is the second time Gwendolyn has spoke to the forum, and we decided, well, let's shake it up a bit. So we said, well, why don't we use Gwendolyn's exceptional expertise in this area and treat it as a clinic. So, Gwendolyn, as you know, has many books published on visuality. Here's my own well-toned version here. So we said we can let Gwendolyn present her thinking around visuality and what it really means within organizations for a few minutes, and then we'll open it up for yourselves for questions, because this is a really interesting area. It has so much to offer, and yet it always feels we're not getting enough out of it in the practices that we see, and we try various things. So here's our chance, if you like, to begin this dialogue around how can we really get the horsepower out of the concept of visuality. And I'm going to use the term visual management because Gwendolyn is going to put us right on that pretty quickly. And so always feel there's more we should be getting out of this, but we don't, or we meet a plateau and then we finish, and then what do we do next? So I'm going to hand it over to Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, I'm super honored to have you here again. Again, this is the start of this dialogue. We hope to shake up the thinking in this area, and no better person to lead that charge than Gwendolyn. So, Gwendolyn, if you want to take over, I will
Yes,
be
thank
quiet.
you. Thank you. Thank you, John. You're very kind. And I will tell you that the relationship with John has been so interesting. I've known him for a number of years, but he is truly a scholar of visuality. He's interested in it as a paradigm. He's interested in it as an application. He's interested in it because it reduces cost, and it also builds the work culture. It builds, if you have one, it will strengthen it. And if you are working on a work culture that follows the profile that the Shingo Prize has shown us and taught us and demonstrated, then visuality is a powerful, powerful tool for going there. So I just want to know that you can see my slide. John, will you tell me, or Jim, will you tell me that I'm okay here? Yeah?
Looking great.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That's what I needed. Thanks. So just a little bit of, if you were here the last time, I'm going over some of the components of it, of visuality, and then it'll be about 10 minutes, and then we'll move into questions. Hopefully I will move rapidly through it, but I want to give you a framework. Right now, I'm just telling you about all the companies that we've worked with, from automotive to aerospace to textiles to electronics. This is over a period of over 30 years. Healthcare, military depots, which are really interesting informational landscapes. That's one of the reasons why it is so difficult to get a good grab on lean, because it's an informational landscape, not a time-based landscape. And that makes all the difference. And of course, food and biomedical and other illustrious partners in this transformational process. All of these companies that you just saw have been laboratories for my work. And the two best books, we've got three more in the works, but Visual Workplace, Visual Thinking is a very good book for the paradigm itself, for the 10 doorways to show you how to segment visuality so that it actually becomes categories of visual function. I know that language is a little heavy right now, but I've had to create a language that would enable me to codify this field, to actually name the field so that it could be implemented. And the book, the yellow book, is a wonderful implementation manual on operator-led visuality. You can see all of this, plus lots and lots of free videos, over 300 podcasts, 150 articles. They're all free on our website, and we hope that you will avail yourself of them. This is worth your study, I believe. So I want to start big and tell you what visuality does with this imagine. Imagine if the answers to all the questions in your company were visually embedded into the living landscape of work, were actually there as visual devices and visual solutions, giving you answers when you needed them. You simply pull them to you because the device is there. Cutting across all operational functions. What would you do with all that liberated time? What would your company do? What would you become? And what would your company become? Visuality is about the informational landscape. It is a language. So we're installing a language. We're installing your intelligence and mine into the living landscape of work through visual devices. We are creating a partner through these devices that will connect us and also drive us. The paradigm that the model that I use to show the segmentation is called the 10 doorways, and you'll find that in the visual thinking book. And this is taking these methodologies and separating them. And I know you won't be able to read these doorway by doorway, but I want to give you a sense of the segmentation, because visuality is about devices that are purposeful, that serve the purpose of each group that is associated with these doorways. So I'm just going to touch on them, allow you to see that. Doorway 1 opens for the operator. Doorway 9 automatically opens for the macro environment that the operator lives in as the enterprise itself. You make those visual linkages in doorway number 9. You build your OPEX function. If you don't have one, you build it. If you have one, it strengthens. Second doorway is about visual standards, which TWI does a really excellent job on. Now make it visual, and you'll really have a high level of effectiveness. Then we have visual displays and visual scheduling. We have visual leadership, which includes measures and visual problem solving. And then pull systems, which Lean does very, very well. And then our 6th doorway is Pokeyoke. And yes, we do have a really good course on that. We like it a lot. It's online and available. My partner, Martin Hinckley, created that particular model, and we put it on its feet. We think it's very good. These first 6 doorways have to do with the transformation of whatever you wish. In doorway number 7, we take those 6 doorways and number 9, and we apply them to the machine. In doorway number 8, we apply them to the office. And the final doorway is about integrating this across multiple sites, across, for example, we just got an invitation to work with a company that has 50 sites. And, you know, they're going to start with 1 plant, and then they'll have 2, and then they'll have 4, and then they'll have 10. And by then there'll be a language established that can be demonstrated and spread. And that's what doorway 10 is about. So I also want you to understand that my effort has been in codifying this field to structure it so that it's implementable. The building blocks are implementable. And now I'm going to just show you snapshots of each of those doorways. This is what the device looks like. Visual where for doorway number 1, operator-led visuality. Visual standards for 2. Here we have visual displays. Here we have the measurement systems, which are part of 4. Here we have the problem-solving systems and the leadership systems. Segmentation for the leader, where it all begins. And our pull systems, and our Pokeyoke, and our machine, and the office. And then finally, doorway number 9, this behind-the-scenes architecture that we call OPEX. So this is just a scan. We are planning to do a series with SA partners, and we'll go into these doorways with more depth during one of those 3 or 4 sessions. We hope you join us. But now I'm going to back off and give you the concept about why we call this a language. If you look at this, excuse me, I'm just going to change my view here because I'm getting a whole lot of people showing, and I don't know how to do this. Let me see if I can get the view. Oh, no, I won't be able to do that. All right, so just kind of manage with this. When we look at this landscape, the visual question is, can you see the information? Can you see it because it's there? That machine wants to tell us something. It has information it wants to share, but unless we enable it, unless we translate that information into devices, the machine looks dumb. It's not dumb. It just hasn't been given a voice. It is us, we who work in this environment, who give that machine a voice. That's the purpose of visuality. This is Rick L's area. He's a master machinist, and I'll show you his area after when he gave a voice to that very same environment. This is visually infused. This is a visually competent work area. If you see this as 5S, you are mistaken. Visuality is a thinking language. It is a language that is driven by a metric that's called motion moving without working. And I won't go off into that tangent. If you have questions about it, we can do it in the Q&A. But this is the difference. You can see the information. For everyone, they can see this information and pull it to them when and as they need it. I want to emphasize this again simply by showing that we have a curriculum, but I'm not trying to get you to take a course. I want you to understand the discreteness of the application of each of these tracks, letting the machine speak, letting the operator's cell work area speak, letting leaders speak through a visual language, letting quality speak. Okay, so these are segmented so that you know that there's methodology behind this. Methodology means you can do it. You don't have to dream about it, and you don't have to steal it from someone else. You can create it yourself. And now I want to show you something that to some of you will look like methodology because it'll be so handy. But these are really part of the building blocks of visuality, of the thinking process. The two questions that drive the visual workplace. Two questions. The first question is, what do I need to know? And it goes like this. What do I need to know that I don't know right now in order to do my work? What do I need to know? Please notice that the arrows pull in. This is a pull system. Visuality is a pull system. We see motion. We know it is caused by an information deficit because we're visual thinkers, we know that. We create a visual device and we pull that information to us when and as we need it. We're pulling this information to us. That's what do I need to know. Please notice it doesn't say, what do we need to know? And this is another big building block. I would say this is the very engine of visuality and why it is a thinking process that we all engage in. And that is, it is I-driven. Now, you may think of the I. That's true. It's about that sense called visuality, visual, vision, eyesight. We'll say more about that. I'm sure some questions will come up about that. What do I need to know? If it said, what do we need to know? We would have to negotiate to get a single device in place. Or, God forbid, the engineers would decide what the device should be and standardize it everywhere, and you would have no engine. There would be no way to propagate. There would be no way to transform the physical workplace and the people who work in them. People would not be transformed. They would simply watch you try to get them to do it. Many of you have experienced that. This sets that paradigm on its head. What do I need to know is the first driving question. The second is, what do I need to share? And I'd like you to hear the we in that. I would like you to know that that's where the team is. In what do I know that I need to share, that others need to know? What do I need to share in order for other people to be able to do their work more completely, more on time, more aligned? What do I need to share? I look for the motion of others, the information deficits of others, and I create a visual device for them, information I need to share with them so they can do their work. That, what do I need to share, is the we. That is the team. So that's about all I want to say about these two driving questions, but they are the most fundamental part of visuality and what is distinctive about it? It's the answer that so many companies have been looking for of how do we get people involved, but not just operators where the power is least, but everyone. How do we get our supervisors involved, truly invested, truly engaged, spirited, and engaged in their work as supervisors or as leaders? So I want to show you how that kind of works in terms of propagation or transformation. Here we have the first question, and I just want to give this to you as a concept. So I apply that first question. Of course, your veteran employees won't want to apply this question because they already know what they need to know. They'll do very well on need to share. But here, let's just take a new operator. New operator, what do I need to know? And that operator gets control of her corner of the world. You do exactly the same thing with supervisors and managers, only our questions are different. Now, when we do the multiple of that, we have cells, or you can think of this as departments. You can even think of them as sites who are embedding their need to know into the living landscape of work. That's the first question. And it's very powerful because what I get, whoever I am, whatever my position is, I get control of my corner of the world. That's all I ask for in my life. I just want some control, even if it's only a 10 by 10 area. Just let that be my kingdom. Let me feel the mastery and the excellence that I'm capable of. Do you see what I'm saying? That's what visuality does. It's the embedded language of my intelligence. Same thing here. Now we're going to add, what do I need to share? And watch what happens. Suddenly, my thinking has impact that is extensive. Oops, I beg your pardon. Let me just stay there for a moment. Let me see if I can go back here. There we go. We're spreading out in these ripples and these rays. We're going out and we are impacting people that we don't directly work with, but yet we have information that's vital to them. Now let's do the multiple of that and watch what happens when these cells or these departments begin with that, continue with that second question. Can you see the overlap? Can you see the integration? And can you get the feel of transformation that we are actually doing this together? That's what visuality is. If you get and if you accept that visuality is a language, then you just use that paradigm of language as your anchor point to understand that language spreads. That we begin as children with words that are simple words that we understand. But as we gain facility, we begin to enjoy the language, we begin to express ourselves, we begin to connect, we begin to interact with, we begin to own that which we're interacting with. We become a part of it. We become unified. That's what the 10 doorways are. So I wanted to give you this so that you understand that even though, I'm going to go back once more, pardon me, to this, even though this is not methodology, you can run about a year on this, but you can't run a second or third or fifth year on it because there's no thinking mechanism. There are other building blocks that allow you to actually think and engage and eventually drive your company via the paradigm of visuality. Okay. Fundamental visuality is a system of thinking first, and then it is a system of the solutions. The solutions, the visual devices come from the thinking, and that's what the joy of it is. The joy of it is I can go to work and think, which is what, of course, Ono told us. People don't come to Toyota to work, they come to think. That was his emblem. That was his horizon. He named that before there was a Thingo Prize, before we were thinking about transformation. He was in a survival mode, and yet he knew.
Oh, God, it's cold.
Sorry. Yes, go ahead, please. You have something?
Don, I think it's just
Okay.
it's okay. Go ahead, Gwendolyn.
I'll carry on. Thank you. There it is. Co-architect with Shigeo Shingo. They did it, and then they named it. They did it, and then we named it. The Shingo Prize has done more to name what is going on in the Toyota production system than Toyota was able to do itself. The Shingo Prize has elevated that into principles that are nameable. And when you name it, then you have a chance to do it. You have a chance to discover it. I'm telling you, it's just a most incredible partnership. Okay, and that's what we think visual thinking is. This is my last slide until I'm going to ask for questions, but I can't see it because there are all these heads in the way. See if I can get rid of these heads. No, I can't. Okay, so I'll just try to remember what it says exactly, because the wording is something I have worked on.
Okay.
The problems, you want to read it, John, please? By all
Yeah,
means.
the problems that face your company today may seem like big problems, but are they your biggest opportunities?
And that is the transformational question that we ask. And that I will once again avert to the Shingo Prize. That is what the Shingo Prize is saying to us. That is what SA Partners, I should say also, is saying to us. Are they your biggest opportunities? You can solve a problem, but you know what happens tomorrow? You'll just see it as another problem. You have to pull back and say, what's going on here? What's the opportunity? What is the transformational doorway? So I wanted to give you that in broad strokes so that you would have an understanding of our enthusiasm. And now we want to hear your questions, your comments. Just take a moment, write something in the chat box, and John will start.
Or if you're happy, just open your microphone and ask. And we've
Yes.
had a few questions in advance, but I'll hold those back unless there's any particular questions that anyone wants to field straight away. So this is, we've all done the 5S circus, and most of the times it gets the place tidy, but we feel there's a gap. We've done visual management and we have boards up, but it doesn't really hit the mark. So again, Gwendolyn has this vast experience that if there's questions you want to bounce, or even if we can't answer them, Gwendolyn will take them away and come back to you. But what are the challenges you're having around this idea of visuality in your own workplaces? Is there anyone who wants to jump in first? Oh, we have,
Yeah, I was just going to speak up though, John,
yeah,
a little bit. So obviously you can see him from SA Partners, but I'm a very people-oriented
sure.
person. So Gwendolyn, what you said about visual thinking and the concepts of making this really a human-centric endeavor, showing that we want to share information, I thought was very powerful. And it's a way of unlocking the true potential of people by saying we want you to be able to share that information. And now here's the place in our workshop, in our site that will allow you to share that information so that everyone can participate with you. That's much different than me creating a board saying I'm going to give you information that I want you to go look at.
I'd
Yeah.
love to comment on that. You said about 5 things I'd love to comment on, but the last thing that you said about giving somebody a board and say, here's the board, this is the size, here's how to use it. In visuality, I'm just going to jump right over that and say, in visuality, we do not put a premium on standardization. We do it a little differently because we hold true to this value that it has to be eye-driven so that the language is owned and so that the language can grow. You see how those two things work together. We don't talk about standardization. What we say to operators and to supervisors and to CEOs, to the executive team, we want to have 3 best practices. We talk about best practices and we say we want 3 best practices. Then we know we're doing it right. They don't need to be identical. They don't need to be uniform. They need to function, getting the same kind of outcome or even better than the last way we achieve that outcome. But we want the thinking to be progressive. We want people to feel the continuity of their own mind. And so we don't standardize too soon. We just don't. Because, so many of us realized years ago that standardization is what every manager wants to give him or her a sense of control. But you pay too great a price for that. So you just have to change the language around it. And even if you don't use the word standardization anymore and just use, we're shooting for best practice, you don't have to go to 3. We went to 3 because we wanted more the word that I use, more commotion, more creativity, more experimentation, more discovery, more emphasis on curiosity and poking at things, so that the workplace would become animated of itself. You understand, we're using work as the laboratory. Each person is using their work as the laboratory. And that's what makes it so interesting. Now I want to make another comment, and John is there to tell me to stop talking. So
Yeah, the chat is lighting up here, Gwendolyn. So
go ahead, please. I'll
so
stop talking.
no, you make your second point, but then we'll get on
Only
to
members.
poor old Robert there is itching to get a question in.
No, please carry on, because actually that flow went down the river. That fish.
Okay, Robert, yes. Sorry, Gwendolyn. Go on, Robert.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me on this. And Gwendolyn, it's nice to meet you. Yeah, it's I find one of my biggest thought processes of late is like mass adoption of, let's say, a vision or what a company or a team's trying to do. And usually what's been quite successful is co-creation. Obviously, nobody wants to be pushed down an instruction, hey, this is how you do your job. It's a very short journey. But I find, yeah, co-creation is always a really good ignition for having a lot of people be on board, because they don't have to be bought in, because it's theirs. But one thing I love about the idea of visuality, I'm a very visual person myself, but with visuality there's also individuality. So when you've got this company, maybe site, or if you've got this enterprise, maybe multiple sites, how do you create a uniform vision for let's say a business and their model and their morality of what they're trying to do, but still allow for individuality when it comes to visualization?
Did you say morality, ethics?
Yeah, let's say a company
Values?
has its values, it has its mission, it has its vision, it has what it wants to do, it has a product in which it wants to reach. For me, I'm in pharmaceuticals, so it's for patients. And it's very easy to stay on board with a vision of a pharmaceutical company because it's to the betterment of your patients. So that's the easy part. But what I find difficult is how you are able to navigate visuality while being able to keep everybody's individuality when it comes to co-creating something and wanting it this way, and they want to help and add their ideas to a very big network of people without kind of lowering the standardization of it.
Yeah, the thing is, well, Sir Robert, the thing is, you're going to have to trade off the timing of that. You can't have uniformity that doesn't almost always begin with diversity. The uniformity is a decision process about saying, this works, this doesn't, this works, this works. How do we put it together? So it is a journey. All of those things that we've heard about, the journey being the destination, is certainly true for the improvement journey. So adjust your language and perhaps use words like, let's demonstrate, let us discover, the Japanese are famous for this, and it's a good, hard objective. Let's find five equally viable solutions. And you give that without explanation. You say, it's time for 5. And eventually people will say, I know we only have 3. We need 5. And when you put that value into action by demonstrating the patience for waiting for 5, but also the value that you express for number 1, number 3, number 2, number 4, and number 5, that will send the message that you really do believe that the human mind and the human will is capable of contributing with great refinement and great eclat, great excitements. I think it's just all of your words are correct. The disconnect for me is it doesn't happen overnight. You actually promote that process. Does that help at all, or does that?
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny. I was being a bit cruel. I was looking for a cheat sheet. But I think you're right. What I have in the back of my mind is that it is a tedious process, but it
Oh,
has
no,
it
it's
has to
not
be
tedious.
endured, you know.
You've got to, no. Oh, Robert, what are we going to do? It's not tedious. You need to be one of the pioneers. You need to be one of the journeymen. You need to really find, and this is, excuse me, I don't know you at all, but I would say, and I can't find your face on all this array.
Gwendolyn, do you just want to stop sharing there, and then people
Oh,
will be
what a
able
good
to see?
idea. I do.
Yeah.
I do. Thank you so much. That's so helpful. I wouldn't.
Here we go.
Thank you very much. So the gentleman who was just talking to me,
Yeah,
Robert,
that's me. How are you?
for your face. Oh, there you are, Robert. Good.
Okay.
So, you're a young man, you have strength, and you're already very likable. So what is this impatience, and what is this you're going to have to tolerate? You may be irritated or intolerant of other aspects of the continuous improvement process. So you shift your values into loving the mystery, loving the no answer, because people are going to look to you for that. If you are indeed a leader, then you have to lead with those values. And one of the things that I found very useful just in talking to whomever is to find ways of sharing values and beliefs in the process of that. Don't make it a separate session, but just say, you know what, John? I remember saying this to someone. You know what, Jose? I actually didn't understand a word you said. I don't understand what you're doing, but I'm very interested to see what you come up with next. I'll be back on Thursday, and I want to see the next step or what you're thinking about, okay? Because I have to own that I didn't follow. This guy is in the stratosphere, but I want him to talk, and I want him to find that anchor point. So, you just need a little bit of there. You got enough coaching for all of 2025.
Thanks, Gwendolyn. Yeah. So,
okay. So maybe I was a little bit too direct.
No, but I think there's for me, and again, I'm going to hand over to Alexander there. Nice to see you again, Alexander. Good to have you aboard. But the question actually was said to me, most of the people we have to interact with at that frontline level, are on they're not on the huge amount of pay, so it behoves us to really bring that excitement and curiosity and around what we're trying to do on this journey, and also around the messages we're trying to bring, and allow them to get involved in that message by, as you said, that co-creation piece. So I'm going to spin over to Alexander. Dave is up next, and then I have Ian on chat there. So Alexander, off you go.
Yeah, thanks, John, and nice to meet you, Gwendolyn, and John, it's good to see you again. My question, bit leading into from what John just said. So I really like what you said earlier in the presentation about the I perspective, right? So you approach this from your own self perspective, and I can see that working really well in an organization where you have already quite a lot of kind of curiosity and a learning organization. If you don't have that in place and you're trying to implement a change program to get people more on the visual management or visual thinking level, if you start from the I perspective, don't you get a situation where everybody's noses are not joined up in the same direction? And so you have to kind of start with a strategy and implement it in the workforce, or do you just go with an approach of just tell us what you think?
This is so valuable. What Robert said is so valuable. What you're saying is the same, is so valuable because it's the same thing. As I hear it, if you want the strength of diversity, that is called unity. The strength of diversity, that is called unity, that will lead to a spirited and engaged and aligned workforce. You will have to sit on your mouth. You will just have to nod and say thank you. And in fact, I will tell you, the greatest transformations, our greatest case studies of transformation have been in companies, I showed you the 10 doorways, where the power distribution is completely out of balance. It is the traditional command and control. Even if people are more polite, it's still do as I say, because I need to get it out the door. I need to show my boss, whatever the pressure is on you. We have always begun. I'm curious to know what will happen. I might have a chance with these 50 plants. I asked them for their lowest one and their highest one. You know, what's the best plant or what's the worst plant? Give me the worst plant, because I need to demonstrate to you that the worst plant is simply a plant that hasn't gone through a transformation. Just, you haven't developed it yet because you've been discouraged, because you don't exactly know where the door is. So I am going to favor this idea of doorway one, operator, value add associate, being the holder of the treasure, because it is where the power is the least. And when you do a transformation, the question that I believe you have to ask yourself is, if I want an empowered workforce, where is that power now? And we always say the power is in the operator. No, it's not. That operator's power is in your power. You are in control of it. You can think of it as a triangle, and you see your top-down triangle. You see your triangle like this. Okay, like this here. You can see that better. But I don't want to give you instruction, but this is what I've discovered. And this is the way I teach it, because it makes sense to the people who are listening. So maybe it'll make sense to you. Where is that power that you want to release? It's inside. There is a coterminous triangle, pyramid, tetrahedron inside that you need to release. And the way it is released is like this. So there's a second. I actually have this almost ready for you to see, but I'd have to go, take me about a minute to find it, but I'll see it. If you're interested, I'll show it to you. There's another pyramid right behind it. And the first step, it's 3 steps. 3, here we go. The first is the decision that you want it. And with that decision, it breaks the inertia and you get this. So what you got to get, it's like this. Hold on. I just want you to get this part of it, but you have to think of this as triangles, pyramids. Okay, so here's you, and here's the operator. Your decision breaks the inertia, and now you can see the two. And then the second is to start the transformation, to have a methodology, and the third is to watch this pyramid. These are pyramids, actually be separated and aligned. It doesn't quite work like that, but you understand that the power is there. It is your decision, and it takes consummate patience to believe in your belief that it's possible. If you don't believe it, then read a book and do a pilot. And John, I want to say this to folks. Don't do it for the enterprise. Do it for one area and just switch the values that are governing you for that one area, which means that whenever someone speaks, whatever they say is, wow, thank you very much. Thank you. Who else has an idea? Wow, thank you very much. In the back of your head, you said, rubbish. Oh my God, rubbish again. Oh my God, rubbish again. What am I going to do? I'm going nowhere. But people who have been powerless will come forth with a great hesitancy. You've heard this a million times. You whack somebody, or you try to do them better, or you try to be clever with your very expensive education and position, and you'll end it right there. It will never grow. It's just smile and say thank you. And then say things like, I can hardly wait to see what we do tomorrow. You have to find it in your heart to pretend it's in your heart until it is in your heart. The transformation that happens is you're the one who has to transform. Do you understand? You see, you know what I mean. Okay.
Maybe also the leadership team, going back to the principle lead with humility, the fact that you know that capability is there, and now you're going to go in and open that triangle, I think is really,
You know,
really powerful.
I have to say, I'm going to get into trouble on this one. I always get in trouble within an hour of my opening my mouth, but I will get into trouble on this one. Is the discussion of leading with humility has been somewhat commandeered by people who think humility has to do with political correctness. And we have, I'm working in Europe now, go back to the United States often enough, and people in Europe are this thing that's called authentic. And we're losing that in the United States. Our authenticity has been so neutralized and cleaned up that humility in a sense has gotten a bad name. So be careful of that. Be yourself. Just don't be mean. And if you are mean, apologize and do it quickly. It took me years to learn not to be mean. I have lots of reasons for being mean. I'm a woman. My father was from Switzerland. You know, there are lots of reasons. But I had to learn to be different. And it's taken a lifetime. Who cares? I like me better now. Okay, go ahead, John.
Dave, over to you.
I scarcely feel I can possibly follow. Gwendolyn, I'm thoroughly enjoying this session. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I'm part of a team who's responsible for change work in a food retailer here in the UK. We've got a complex supply chain, and we know we can help people by sharing stuff. We can visualize the kind of what and when. We know that we need to learn more about visualizing the interconnections, that kind of complexity that comes, right? If I change my bit, that affects your bit, their bit, and so on and so forth. And I'd love to learn about how we can help people to see, how we can expose some of those interconnections.
And was that something I should respond to? Do you think you gave me enough?
Well, ideally, it's something you've completely fixed for us, you know.
Okay, so one thing that visualizing is something that we use when we're trying to imagine a horizon, or we're an Olympic champion and we visualize our routine. So it's already known, but visuality is something different. So I'm going to give you a little 5-minute on visuality. Understand that we are sense-driven, we are sense-dominated entities. We have sight, hearing, smell, touch, something else. Can't remember what that is. Smell. I think I said that already. We have a brain, and I'm going to use brain and mind synonymously. 50% of the involuntary part of our brain is dedicating to finding and interpreting visual data. Visible visual data, data I can see. That data, John, I have to do this because the thing is so important. Okay, so I'm just going to jump to my presentation, and
I want to try and get to Ian also, because
no,
Ian
please
raised a
don't.
very
Please
not
don't.
yet. No, do this,
No, just
but I want
give me
to.
a chance. Just give me a
Yeah.
chance. We have an hour, but you know, there are lots of hours in 2025. We got a whole year of hours. All right. So what I want to talk to you about is visual devices. I wish that I were a lot better at doing what I'm doing here. Here we go. It was the next slide. Hold on. There we go. The brain function. This is the inborn engine. We all have it. And if we are
You're not sharing. You
I'm
probably
not
need to share.
sharing. Thank you very much.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, don't make me nervous. All right. I got this wiggly. I don't know if it's going to be worth it, sir, but.
Okay, very good. Got it.
Thank you for encouraging me. See, John's doing it just right. I'm so nervous and he's doing it just right. Okay, full screen. So 50% of the involuntary function of our mind, right? We use 10% of the 100%, 50% of that 90% is dedicated to finding and interpreting visual data. This is involuntary. This is automatic. It is as continuous as our heartbeat and as our breathing. That's the way we are made. the brain is made to pick up information, to pick up data, transform that data into information, and that information into meaning. Behavior and belief derive from that meaning. So that is why we're talking about physical devices and why we don't talk about visualize. We talk about visual thinking, we talk about visual workplace. One subset of that is visual management. 10% of the power of the visual spectrum is about visual management, but the rest is about visual performance, which actually gives you the metrics, doesn't it? So you get this part. We live in a visual world because we are visual beings, and it's not the other way around. The world didn't teach us to be visual. It wasn't its gift to us. It was our requirement of it. Okay, as soon as we had our tribe turned into community and our community turned into connecting communities, we needed visuality. Here's another piece, sir, that will, I think, help. The mind is a pattern-seeking mechanism. That is the function of the mind. It is going on right now as you are seeking to understand me, and I am seeking to understand you. Of course, we're using words. We're in this medium of words, but still we have that facility. So you've seen this before, and the research that was done at Cambridge has been dissed, but the event that's going on in your brain right now is still the truth, that you can read this because you are reading the pattern. As soon as I lose the pattern, and you're going to feel it right now, you are going to have to vocalize this. You're going to have to search for, what the heck does this mean? Okay, I got it, important. Okay, that is your mind doing its work automatically. And that is your great friend. It is one of the reasons why visuality is a universal language, cutting across all of your multi-ethnic workforce. Right now, in fact, it looks like John and I are going to do some work with communities who have real communication deficiency, autism, dyslexia, and things like that.
And that's the point actually Ian was making,
Go ahead,
that
please.
the value of, this I, and thanks, Dave. And there's obviously a lot more we can get on that one. But Ian has mentioned this fact that, the I thing is really dependent on the I. So if I have different needs, or I have, it's my interpretation of the world. And now we're learning there's so many divergent, and again, there's experience to show how this thinking really helps that space. Ian, did I get that right? Yeah. So do you want to just have just a little speak on, because we talk about this a lot in our business, and yet here we have a way of thinking that can enable that to happen. So what would you think about that, Gwendolyn?
Is it I or Ian?
Yeah.
Did you want to add to it?
Ian.
Yeah. Yesterday I saw a presentation about autism in relation to STEM, and I have some flesh in the game because my son's autistic. So that made my brain whiz, as it does, as you're thinking through all these different concepts. And then when I saw this pulling apart of visual, let's just pull apart visual management into two elements, of two perspectives, from the individual and from the outside, and that the two need to be compatible. That seemed to me a very sensible idea, but also then I began to think, we have an assumption that the individual sees the world in the same way. Every individual sees the world in the same way, and they don't. For cultural reasons, historic reasons,
World peace is on the horizon.
Reasons. Some people, their most important sense almost is smell. They'll walk into a room and they'll tell you there's something wrong, and you think, how do you work that out? No, there's a slight smell of burning. There's a whatever. So, but the thing that I loved about just that initial idea, I need to think about the rest, really do. But that initial idea of thinking of it rather than this conflict that we often have with visual management between empowerment and standardization, perhaps that's the wrong way of thinking it. Step outside that, look at it from one end, look at it from the other end, and ideally you want somewhere in the middle that everybody can communicate. So that was my thinking process, and I still need to think it through, to be honest.
I'd like to respond to 5 or 6 things you said. Let's see how many John will allow me to. One is we have a natural tendency to be oppositional. We, especially in the West, and especially in the United States, which is where I am right now. I arrived a couple of days ago. We glory in being oppositional, in finding out what's wrong with what is said. And if we are given, if someone presents 2 opposites, we will make them work. So somebody presented standardization and put as its opposite something like anarchy or chaos, right? And we can make a story out of it, but it's a false binary. It's not a story. It's just 2 words that happen to be on the same page at the same time. What we have to do is get back to kind of like our original self and use our common sense to say, if it's oppositional, is it really workable? Do I really have to choose? Or am I missing something? And one of the things that, in fact, visual thinking does, especially for operators, but also for CEOs, is that it teaches critical thinking. Because it always says, one of the things that we do in class with operators in the session is, I want you to flip what you just said. Now, you can't do that during the first session or the second, but by the 3rd or 4th session, when they get used to you're saying, well, what do you think? How do you work out what's up on the screen? They get used to using their mind as an instrument and then enjoying it. And they will just people will automatically flip things and suddenly discover that either there is no opposite or 5 or 6 alternatives. And that becomes a very rich experience at work. So one of the treasures that I've discovered, and believe me, when I've codified the field, I want you to understand I first discovered it. It didn't come as a model. Japanese don't talk about it this way. But I saw what happened when people were allowed to use their senses within a structure. So that's one thing I wanted to say to you about the opposites being false. The other thing that's so wonderful about the interface between visuality and autism, and I had a neighbor who was so willing to do this experiment with me. She had an autistic child, is that the visuality created community in the family. And I'm sure you know about this, that if you can find simple repetitive tasks that can be done and visualized so that the child, the person can voluntarily of his own accord make a contribution to the family, you start building another dimension for that child. If you haven't done this, it's very simple. Just set the table and you know where the forks and knives are, and you have little templates. I'm sure that's part of it must be part of the field, because it's so powerful. This was in Portland, Oregon. We're so powerful for this teacher. She was a teacher, so she was eager to learn, and it really made a huge difference. It created harmony. Harmony isn't the opposite of anarchy. Harmony is a natural state for us. So I just wanted to comment and encourage you to go further. Of course, we can have conversations, but what I would rather you do is experiment yourself. Go as far as your heart and your connection with your child goes, and contribute to the field. Let this be your field, because we need practitioners. Rupert Sheldrake, whom you must know about, is a very famous biochemist in England. He's famous because he enlisted, the way Churchill did, everybody to contribute to his experiment. Read the 7 experiments that can change the world, and that's your job, sir. So if you feel moved by this, get it clear and then make a contribution and start building a different way of living with what is currently seen as a problem. It's not a problem, it's an opportunity. I'd love to see what you do. And John and I are very happy to work with you if you want to go somewhere with it.
Yeah, and interestingly, we're doing some, hopefully we'll be supporting some people in that space in the not too distant future. So it's a pressing need. Now we have I think 2 minutes left or 3 minutes left.
Oh, can I do the thing about visual management? So the thing about visual management is that it's about LCD boards, it's about measurement, it's about managing. Managing comes from a French Italian, it comes from the Latin. I used to be a Latin teacher, and it means, in its original form, manager means to train horses. And that has entered into our lexicon of management. And it somehow or other, the flavor has stayed longer than we think. Leading is different. Leading is going first. Leading is bringing others with you. Visual management is 10% of the visual spectrum. The other 90%, and you can read about it in my book, Visual Thinking. There's 4 or 5 pages on that if you want more. But I wanted to clarify that. So take a minute, John. It's all yours.
No problem. So look, like I said, the chat is posted out on my computer here, and we got questions around visual management, the ROI on visual management. We have questions on time for 5, going back for that idea, time for 5. So again, so what we'll do is we'll capture these, and we'll get answers for them, and we'll put them somewhere, send them out in an email.
No, because I'll have to do the writing. I'll have to do the
Oh,
writing.
okay.
This takes me forever to write, but we will have another session. You tell us when you want to meet again, and we'll have this, if not with the Lean Forum, then with John and his webinar.
And we are planning 4 workshops. They'd probably be LinkedIn Live or whatever you call that thing. And again, you're more than welcome to be. But I just want people to get a sense of the depth of this thinking. This is not 5S. This is not putting lines on the floor. This is not like, there's so much of the mindset. And for me, Gwendolyn really grabs the thinking. We're capturing the intelligence of our work, of our teams and our people, and we're embedding it in the way work works in organizations, the way we talk about work, and the way we share our thinking in the workplace. So it's been a fabulous, enriching space for me to read about and talk to Gwendolyn about, and I'm hoping that we begin to get way beyond 5S. This is so much more than 5S.
We didn't talk about it at all today.
Isn't that great? Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's an incomplete paradigm. But yes, so John, I think that what we want to say is we'll just do another clinic open, because you made a contribution and I made a contribution, but our guests also made a tremendous contribution, which is your curiosity and your poking at it. This is the very dynamic that we were talking about that is transformational. And I'm not, honestly, I am so far from a Miss Goody Two-Shoes. I'm a New Yorker. And, that puts me into a kind of a different category. This is very, very wonderful. I really loved it. Thank you very much for being so rambunctious. It really brightens my day.
Thank you. And when you throw that party in New York, we'll all be there. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gwendolyn.
Happy holidays, everyone. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy
Enjoy.
Christmas, everyone.
Yeah. Keep an eye out for the links, and take care, everybody, and thanks for joining us.